Parents strongly caution the following programs are intended for mature audiences over the age of 18. These programs may contain some material that many parents would not find suitable for children and may include intense violence, sexual situations, coarse language, and suggestive dialogue.
Hello there, viewer. Before we start this video, I must warn you before we enter this venture. The following program consists of a high dosage from the social media app known to many as TikTok, mostly known for giving quick dopamine hits of content to shorten the attention span of its viewers that are on said platform. High exposure to this content, even if it's for educational purposes, as with the case of this video, could result in irreversible cases of brain rot. If you feel your mind start to devolve into madness, and your body starting to shut down from the inside out, please stop this video and call emergency services immediately. Luckily, in order to break the pace of showing you inexcusably dumb content on this platform, this program will be broken up into 3 acts, each of which showing the ever-growing disparity of the lengths that people will go to in order to get famous on said platform. Now with all that out the way, please sit back and enjoy the program that you're about to witness. And before I forget, there is one last message from our friends at ByteDance that they would like you to know, and that is they are always watching. Keep your eyes open, knowing that despite against your better judgment, you continue to use an app that's affected your life in so many ways that you can't even fully grasp. So keep using TikTok, because it's only going to get worse from here, and there is nothing you can do to stop it.
Freight train, going so fast. I don't know what train he's on. Won't you tell me?
Alright, I'm gonna check the reverb before we start. All good? Yeah, sure, that's fine. Bass, brass, class, crass. It says ass right here. This rhyming dictionary is pretty funny. Wait, are we ready to go? Okay then, let's go. Okay, who keeps leaving boxes on the floor in the studio? Oh, my bad. You know what, anyways, let's just start this shit. What's up everyone, I am CBM Productions, and today we delve into the world of true crime, but not the one that you're thinking of, for the most part. We're not covering some horrifying individual doing some unspeakable actions, for now. Instead, we're dipping our toes into the horrifying world of TikTok. I assume if you're watching this video, you're at least aware of this app's existence. Ever since being formed from the ashes of Musical.ly, the app that gave us such legends as Jacob Sartorius and JENNA ORTEGA.
Some people sneeze like, others sneeze like, some sneeze like, I sneeze like.
I find social media to be a soul-sucking void of meaningless affirmation.
For the past 7 years, TikTok has taken the social media world by storm, perfecting the formula of short media content to keep you hooked on the platform and shorten the attention spans of many people across the world. Well, unless you're India. As people's minds and attention spans across the world have forever been altered by the algorithm created by ByteDance. The platform is known for being one of the easiest ways to grow an audience and go viral. We have seen so many people around the world become part of the cultural zeitgeist, at least for the modern generation, through going viral on TikTok, which is a double-edged sword in a lot of ways, as many people have done absolutely questionable things, to say the least, in order to get the attention of the sweet algorithm. From spilling cereal on a subway during a pandemic where people are just trying to get to work, faking a conspiracy to promote a travel app, acting like an NPC, and so many more people to the point where you can make like a Chris Chan lengthy documentary of the amount of people that have just sacrificed their reputation in the real world just to become viral on TikTok for a week and then have their reputation be slandered forever as being the dumb person that did some sort of really dumb thing on TikTok. As case with the individuals that we'll be discussing for today's video. People who threw any shred of integrity they had in seconds from either committing crimes on TikTok, getting caught committing crimes and then being exposed for it, or maybe a mixture of the two. These TikTok creators I'll be discussing for today's video have done things that have ranged from asinine, questionable, head-scratching, abominable, and any other word under the sun you can describe for being regrettably stupid. After seeing quite a handful of TikTokers being arrested, especially over the course of this summer, and after seeing so many commentary videos covering said TikTokers, I thought, why not look up every single TikTok creator that's been involved with the law and rank all of them? Nobody's done before that I know of, so why not be creative? And looking over the past several years, ever since TikTok blew up, especially in the United States, and seeing how many different cases I've come across, it further cements my resentment for TikTok and just questions me why it's still allowed to be around. I did have TikTok for a few months back in like 2019 or whatever, but I deleted it after I found out how the app was actually being run. Around the same time I got banned in the US. Ever since then I deleted TikTok and never looked back. And in retrospect, I wish that ban had gone through. But sadly that's not the 5D reality we live in.
I'm gonna go continue to do what I do best, and that's live in the 5D reality, not in the 3D reality of hate and harm and hate crimes and hurtfulness and no accountability, right? I don't live in that 3D reality.
World War III might start because of this app, but don't worry folks, we get to have amazing content like this. Anyways, I'm gonna rank every single TikTok creator that's been involved with the law and gotten arrested, from least egregious to most egregious over the course of this video. Through my research, I found 33 cases of TikTok creators committing crimes over the past several years, and we're gonna talk about all of them in today's video. Now, there are some cases where some TikTokers have committed the exact same crime, so there will be some slots on this list where multiple creators are tied with each other. Like for example, like multiple creators like committing the same DUI. It would feel superfluous to rank who had the worst DUI. Like that's weird. A DUI is awful in any sense of the word. Leading us to have 18 slots for today's ranking. And before we kick things off, to clear up any confusion you might have, I will only be discussing TikTok creators who have committed a crime and gotten involved with the law. Not some random like nobody teen on TikTok that got arrested for following a TikTok trend, who weren't TikTok creators that blew up on TikTok for committing a crime. TikTok creators that got arrested for crimes that, at least by US laws, most people wouldn't consider to be a crime. For example, a lot of the Middle Eastern TikTok creators that got arrested for doing like, parroting like the UAE. The biggest one being the Haneen Hossam situation, where she just had a regular TikTok account that just consisted of her singing and dancing and stuff like that. Like 90% of the TikTok platform is. But because of the country that she's in, and the fact that some of her followers are children, she was arrested and sent to a few years in prison and labeled as a human trafficker. And there are other cases where people were just falsely imprisoned for their actions. And also, I won't be covering anyone that got arrested and was later acquitted for their charges, technically not constituting as a crime. Only people that did a wrongdoing and had the hammer brought down on them. Whether that be by law enforcement, social media, or anywhere in between, people who were known consistently to make content on TikTok to where when they were arrested, TikToker was in their headline when they got arrested. And I don't think this needs to be stated, but please do not go out and harass any of the people I mentioned in this video, or negatively contact them in any sort of way. It's just not worth it. Anyways, I'm not going to waste any more time and get into the wildest ranking you'll ever see on YouTube. Now, kicking off this list, out of all the stories that we're going to talk about in this video, this is the only one where technically the TikTok creator in question didn't even commit a crime. Now, getting into the narrative, Gianluca Conte, hopefully I pronounced that right, also known as QCP on TikTok, is mostly known for creating cooking-related content with a comedy twist. In September of last year, he was arrested on the count of felony possession, as he allegedly was driving around in a U-Haul truck trying to help a friend move, but when he was pulled over, the cops ran the license plate and realized that it was a stolen vehicle. It was later revealed that one of Conte's roommates gave him the U-Haul for the move, without realizing that the roommate didn't pay for the U-Haul truck, didn't give it back, and ghosted the company. Luckily, these charges seem to have been dropped, but it's not confirmed as far as I know, as he continues to post his regular content on the platform. There's not really much to the story other than how funny and odd the situation is. Out of all the stories in this list, this is by far the most frivolous and the most lighthearted one. Now let's get into the actual crimes. Getting into the second placement on this list, we have by far the most ancillary and forgettable crime, to the point where I even debated if I should put it on this list or not. So to set the stage, Jane Hostler and Bryce Hall were two members of this pack known as the Sway Boys, that existed apparently for a few years. I've never heard of them personally. They blew up on TikTok for looking good and knowing how to lip sync and do dances, TikTok's prime bread and butter. The Sway Boys were one of the many TikTok groups that try to make their own like Team 10 style branding by collaborating and even like living in a house together for a few years, known as the Sway House, which has since been defunct. Which was a China that was like strangely blowing up around the time like 2019-2020 just as the pandemic broke out, but in May of 2020, the Sway Boys decided to go on a road trip cross country from their house in LA all the way down to Texas over the course of the Memorial Day weekend. While in Texas, Jane Hossler and Bryce Hall will both be arrested on drug charges, both reportedly having less than 2 ounces of marijuana each on them, with Jane having an additional 400 grams of uncontrolled substance, according to reports. Jane will later state that he actually took the fall on the drug charges for his friend Josh Richards, another member of the Sway Boys, due to the fact that Josh was Canadian, and that if Josh were arrested, he would be detained and sent back to Canada. And despite the two of them being detained, they will be released after posting bail. This situation really isn't much to talk about. Compared to the absolutely bonkers stories we'll talk about later on in this list, 2 teenage boys at the time being arrested for having marijuana on them is really nothing. Now don't get me wrong, drugs are bad, unless your parents aren't around. But considering marijuana is legal in a lot of states across the US, this was just a situation where it was just the wrong state at the wrong time. This is just typical high school, college age level behavior. Nothing more than that. So let's actually get to the fun stories, shall we? Now from here on out, I basically have no sympathy for anyone on this list going forward. The previous 2 stories we talked about consist of very minute things going on, nothing really egregious or embarrassing. That changes with this placement on this list going upwards. So breaking this shit down to a comprehensible narrative, Jacob Percival, also known as Jupa on TikTok, is about as bland milquetoast as you can get for a TikTok content creator. He primarily makes content that is like 10,000 other content creators you've seen done before and better in my opinion. He primarily makes content consisting of him and his friends fooling around public places like Walmarts and causing a scene and basically making everyone around them miserable as a result. And other like weird pranks like walking to like a restaurant pretending to work there at the back kitchen, pretending to eat insulation.
You know like the pink insulation? Yeah. Do you know this tastes the same as that insulation?
If it tastes the same?
Yeah, like.
And other odd things. He's really nothing special beyond that, apart from the situation that actually broke him into the spotlight. And when I mean breaking in, I mean literally breaking in. To set the stage, earlier this summer in early June 2023, allegedly Jacob and his friends broke into Busch Gardens, a theme park located in Tampa, Florida, where for his TikTok clout, he came up with the bright idea to jump the fence of one of the wildlife exhibits, consisting of alligators, where he tries to impersonate the late great Steve Irwin, as gators are literally at his feet.
Not the wild Gary!
Following this, he will be arrested with burglary on an occupied structure, a second-degree felony, and 2 misdemeanor counts of trespassing and petty theft, because him and his friends also caused other mischief before the gator incident. This is just a sad but common occurrence in today's society, where people will literally do the dumbest shit in order to get an ounce, a little gram of TikTok content. And it's honestly a shame that the gators didn't take a bite out of him, but the police sure did. There's this growing trend on TikTok for some reason where people will literally just commit felonies just for clout, as if it's a cool thing to have an arrest record. Whether it's defacing property, causing public scenes, stealing property from schools like water heaters and sinks and shit. Like, do these people not realize that life is more than just clicks and followers? These are things that will stick with you for the rest of your life. And I don't mean by just commentary YouTubers roasting you over the hot coals for a week, but preventing you from actually getting opportunities in the future like actually getting a job. Because the first thing that pops up whenever people search your name is dumb TikToker arrested for jumping in gator pits. Do you really want that to be your legacy? I just don't get it, and I do hope the justice system does throw the book at this guy to make him an example of what not to do to become famous. Because he's not talented enough to actually make himself beyond a very annoying, shallow YouTuber. And the most ironic thing about this situation is that this situation really didn't even blow up or make him famous. Usually when situations like these occur, you get like major commentary channels like Moist Critical or Leon Lush that make a whole entire video about you that will garner your account some attention. Whether that's good or bad, it's still engagement and attention. But with this situation, literally no one even covered it beyond just the basic news channels. So even the goal to become a TikTok icon didn't even come around for him. All it got out of this was an arrest record and a bad rep for the very few people that know who he is. And before we move on, I want to ask you something, Jacob. Was it worth it? I think you know the answer. Moving on. Now this is where we're getting to the wild stories on this list. Sandra Hannah, who's a TikToker from Liverpool, England, who went viral in 2020 during lockdown, when her and her family were screaming for the heavens when they lost their family parrot, Chanel. Not to be confused with the Frank Ocean song.
See both sides like Chanel. See on both sides like Chanel.
Around a year after she went viral, her and her partner, I assume, Ian Hannah, were arrested and charged for importing cannabis and possessing criminal property. To quote Inquisitor, the charge comes after a 2-day-long joint operation between Merseyside Police and the National Crime Agency. The police and agency officers found 237.6 kilograms of cannabis resin, which were imported directly from Spain. According to the authorities, the imported cannabis is valued at 792,000 pounds approximately. And as of April of this year, the duo have been charged with over 800,000 pounds worth of cannabis, which equates to around $888,000 USD. And looking at the photos consisting of the multiple bears worth of cannabis in their possession, these two are literally Liverpool's Walter and Skylar White. It's funny for a woman that went viral for screaming about a parrot and dancing on top of a Porsche, that she had this drug mule inside of her the entire time. It's not the worst thing in the world, but it's certainly an interesting story, and by far the story that has the most questions about it. Like, I would love to hear a full explanation of why this family had the amount of cannabis they had in their possession as they did. It's one thing for the Sway Boys that have little Zaza on them, but holy shit, they really did go for the long haul on this one. Anyways, once again, this proves why drugs are bad, for the most part, and don't hoard nearly $1 million worth of cannabis in your possession for the authorities to find them and charge you. But it's a crazy world we live in.
See both sides like Chanel. See on both sides like Chanel.
Now this is the first placement on this list where we have a tied slot. This isn't a situation with the Sway Boys where the two work together in conjunction. Despite these are both separate stories and different people, they essentially committed the same crime and proves why you shouldn't fake stuff on TikTok that involves the authorities. So starting with Anthony Gagne, the most recent TikToker to be arrested as of recording this. He's one of these TikTokers like I talked about with Jacob Percival, where he'll literally do anything desperate just to get a clout of attention on TikTok, to where he'll literally commit false crimes to attract the FBI. His most famous series that garnered the most attention on his platform is a series called Trying to Get the FBI at My Door, where he would commit false crimes like, making a fake stuffed dead body and stuffing it in a trash can outside his house for all of his neighbors to see, hoping they'll call the police, trying to break into a bank at night, actually calling the FBI themselves to try to report him. And mind you, during this entire series that lasted months, he's Canadian. So he's not even contacting the right agency for his country. Eventually, some form of law enforcement did arrive on his doorstep, after months of trying to garner some sort of attention of making his dream come true of getting the authorities involved. After this series ended, he created another series to try and keep his engagement up, called Trying to Get the Police at My Door, as if the FBI wasn't enough. He continued to commit false crimes as an excuse for people to keep laughing at him, with one of his more infamous stunts that you probably know him for, where he got a van, spray painted free candy on the side, and actually walked up to a local elementary school and offered kids free candy. Why?
Why? Why? Why? Why?
Eventually, this did get the police at his door, but not in the way that he thought, as he would be arrested for public mischief and false crimes to increase his popularity. Like I said with Mr. Jacob earlier, I really do hope the Canadian authorities throw the book at this guy to why he shouldn't poke the bear regarding messing around with the authorities. Not only is it sad that a grown-ass man is doing this shit just to get attention on TikTok that his parents never gave him growing up, but the fact he was consistently wasting people's times, making the police investigate crimes that were completely false just for TikTok, like focusing on actual crimes, versus some guy making his neighbors worried that this degenerate was actually stuffing a dead body in a trash can. Hopefully this arrest is a rude awakening for this guy, and that he sees the error in his ways. If not, he's not the first TikToker to be a repeat offender. Now getting into the situation with Braille Simmons, a 53-year-old man at the time, from southern Minnesota, he was a TikToker who went under the name of Ray Reeves, where he showcases such weapons such as a plethora of guns, badges, law enforcement gear, from being a federal agent, or so he said. It was actually all a ruse for his fan base, as in reality, he was never involved or employed by any branch of the US Department of Homeland Security. A woman that Mr. Simmons was dating at the time found out about this and tipped the authorities regarding his fake persona. Police raided his house and found all of his guns, badges, gear, etc. And not only was he arrested for impersonating an officer, he had a prior felony conviction in Colorado, so he shouldn't even be allowed to have firearms in his possession. Because of this, he was convicted and sentenced to 6 years in prison, as of June of 2022 for the aforementioned crimes. Both these scenarios show that faking it till you make it is not the best path in life. These two men thought they could get away with messing around with the law and try and garner an audience by becoming a persona that they clearly aren't. And both are suffering repercussions for their actions. And what makes it worse is that these are both two grown-ass men that did this stuff. This is like dumb teenager shit. It also does go to show that just because you're an adult, doesn't mean you still have a lot of learning to do. But anyways, the crazy train doesn't stop here. Far from it. Lexi Sanchez Gullo has to be probably one of the worst TikTokers when it comes to personality-wise of this entire list. Her entire persona on TikTok and other social media platforms consists of some of the most spoiled, bratty, self-entitled behavior you'll ever see from a Gen Z person on any sort of platform. She is quite literally the poster child when it comes to stereotypical Gen Z women. Even just listening to her voice makes me cringe.
My mom's a lawyer, and mommy will sue. And if she doesn't sue, I'll sue. So, toodles.
But her voice is far from the worst thing about her. To set up this story, as you can tell from her lifestyle in these videos, and even mentioning it herself, she gets a lot of her privileged lifestyle from mommy's money, and she wanted to use some of the money to get a car back in November of last year. A Ram 1500 to be specific. so she decides to go to one of the local Ford dealerships in her area to purchase said Ram 1500, but is immediately blockaded by the dealers there, claiming they weren't willing to sell the car to her even though that she had $30,000 in cash ready to go, all because the dealers were misogynistic and didn't want to do business with a woman. So she posted TikTok at the dealership, claiming these reports and crying to her audience about being unfairly treated. She also decides to tag the address of the dealership in her post, leading to many of her fans leaving scathing reviews about the dealership, trying to make the dealership look bad from the outside in as a result. But here's the kicker, right? She tagged the wrong dealership in her post.
How do you fuck that up? How do you fuck that up?
Later, her fans unleash a tidal wave of backlash for a dealership that had nothing to do with the situation. Once she's confronted about this by the dealership themselves that was, wrongfully tagged, instead of putting on her big girl pants and actually just, owning up to it and apologizing, she doubles down on the mistake, claiming that all 4 dealerships are misogynistic and that really doesn't matter in the long run. She then gathers her friends and decides to tag the dealership more in other posts, until she live streams going back to the same dealership that she posted the original TikTok about, once again trying to buy this truck, and is immediately confronted by police upon arriving at the scene. She continues to be a brat and refuses to leave the dealership until she is maced and arrested on camera, while all this is being documented by her live stream. And you might be asking, was this Ford dealership actually misogynistic? Well, as reported in his email that was given to Leon Lush in his amazing video to cover the situation, this user was reportedly close to the situation and revealed the truth. The real story claimed by this user is that Miss Sanchez did want to purchase this Ram 1500, but when she arrived at this dealership, she didn't have $30,000 in cash like she claimed in her TikTok. She tried to apply for a down payment through her credit, but she was denied credit approval because her credit, and I quote, was dog shit. So she decides to make up this story and whining about not being able to get a truck from a dealership that was misogynistic. And why? I guess for TikTok clout? I honestly don't know what her endgame was regarding the situation. This is a story that I think is important for the youth of today to understand. In life, you're not going to get everything that you want. Not everything is going to go your way, because the world doesn't revolve around you. And when you have that mindset, it makes life a lot easier for you and everyone else involved in your life. If you're a spoiled brat that thinks that everyone should tend to your needs, you get arrested on a live stream in front of thousands and mocked by millions, to the point where you basically have to walk away from social media entirely. I really don't have any sort of sympathy for this woman regarding this situation. Harassing people for no reason, getting your degenerate fan base to unleash a tidal wave of bad reviews on the wrong dealership that had nothing to do with the situation, and not even taking accountability. I sincerely hope this situation was a rude awakening for this woman, and that she doesn't come into contact with any Ford dealership going forward.
That's a little something we like to call fuck around and find out!
Now we're at the case with Kylie Strickland, a former TikTok erotic photography model, thanks Google, who around last summer was attending a pool party where she decided to livestream herself and another woman showing each other off in their bikinis. Around them were 2 underage boys, who our main character Kylie in this story, decided to show or expose bare breasts to them. She would later be charged for computer or electronic photography and child exploitation, which is a felony in the state of Georgia. She tried to defend her actions, saying that the young boys have seen more boobs than she already has in their entire life, and that they were taking tequila shots at the party where she decided to show her breasts to them, as if that's any kind of excuse. Safe to say, this didn't really go over very well with the public, and her social media following was destroyed because of the situation. This is a situation where a 30-year-old woman at the time of the situation flashed 2 underage boys and saw nothing wrong with it. Now, as a straight guy, it is easy at first to envy the boys in this situation, wishing you could see bare breasts in front of your eyes like you're fucking like Norman Bates or some shit. But this is a situation where she quite literally is grooming these kids. If the roles were reversed when we saw a 30-year-old man flash a couple of underage girls, this situation would be much more covered and talked about than the reality of what actually happened. Because when it comes to a situation whenever like a female predator is exposed, like, a really creepy teacher that messes around with the underage boy, there's always those insults on the internet that are like, oh, I wish my teacher acted like this around me when I was in school, without realizing how messed up and psychologically damaging that is. And any adult that finds kids attractive or decides to show their bare body parts to them, even if it isn't intentionally sexual or trying to arouse somebody, is still a piece of shit in my book. And I do hope, because this is still an ongoing case, that the justice system does give her a harsh sentence. It does really give her much sympathy. Because although she didn't really like sexually touch these boys in any way, but allowing kids to be in that environment, even if it isn't your kids, and you decide instead of just acting responsibly or just ignoring them, you decide to show your honkers to them, it's just like, why? Especially when they're old enough to be your kids. And whoever's parents in this situation just allowed them to be around this situation where they can take tequila shots and be around like really skanky women. Why the hell? Like, I don't know, the parents piece of shit as well, but still, there's no good people in this story. And the fact that it's only 12th on this list just shows how much worse these next placements are. Now we're at Bakari Bronzo Garo, also known as Mizzy to many people across the globe for absolutely the wrong reasons. You've probably seen this guy cause mischief and mayhem over the course of the summer, as his downfall has been extensively recorded and documented, mostly by his own liking, and once again, we're at a situation where a person just can't understand the consequences of their own actions. Breaking down the situation to those who are unfamiliar with the case, Bakari is one of those TikTokers that got famous on the platform for doing stupid shit around the UK where he's from. Primarily just running around with his friends and doing things like, you know, jumping on top of a random guy and then just pushing him in the street, walking up to strangers in the middle of the night by themselves and asking if they want to die, stealing an old woman's dog and running away with it. But the major event that caused him to become TikTok famous is a TikTok where he and his friends decide to walk into some stranger's house, as the family just are appalled and just confused by the behavior, as Bakari and friends just start lounging around their furniture. The police did get involved and have him arrested, but only giving him a fine and a 2-year court order, where he can't trespass on private property, and he can't record others without their explicit permission. Which is a pretty light order, even to the point where Bakari multiple times has said in interviews how light the laws are in the UK.
I also care about the fact you've only got a tiny fine today, no deterrent to you whatsoever, you don't show any real remorse, you don't really care, do you?
The UK laws are weak, simple as, and that's not, the UK laws are weak, simple as, and that's not my fault.
And despite having the opportunity to learn from the situation, and having the ability to do something better with his life, he decides to go back to his bread and butter of content and just harass more people in public, including running onto a public train and messing around with the equipment, which led him to another arrest and another light fine. Around this time, he would go on multiple British talk shows to try and defend his actions. But instead, every host on every single one of these shows destroyed him, and every point he tried to make was outweighed severely by the consequences of his actions and behavior.
I literally accept, like I'm saying, Mizzy and Bakari are two different. Bakari's the mastermind behind Mizzy. In real life, I know what Mizzy's doing is going to cause real life consequences and actions. I've been on tag, I'm on tag for a year right now. I understand that it's going to cause real life problems, but that's not the bigger, there's a bigger issue at hand here.
Sorry guys, it actually wasn't me, it's actually my alter ego. Shut the fuck up, and just take accountability for your actions. Despite being roasted on public TV and being arrested twice, he tried to gain some TikTok sympathy by getting emotional on camera, but that wouldn't last long as he would get arrested for a 3rd time for currently unknown reasons. The most plausible theory I've seen around the internet was revolving around a TikTok that Bakari and his friends made, where they decided to trespass on more private property, this time sneaking around to an apartment, where him and his friends sneak into a couple of rooms, and immediately rush out the second that the people inside notice them, as if they're like a group of teen girls dropping off a note at their crush's locker. Ever since then, there really hasn't been much update regarding Mizzy or his punishment, but I do hope the authorities over in the UK do give him a harsh sentence to show that your actions do have consequences. This is one of the more frustrating situations on this list because you can tell that the Mizzy persona and the character that Bakari tries to portray is all just a sheen just to hide his own personal insecurities. Given how desperate this guy is for attention, to the point where he'll constantly commit crimes just to get somebody to notice him. Feeling the need to constantly get in trouble because that's all I can think of to do is disheartening. And the fact he got off the hook easy not once but twice by authorities, and then continue to push the envelope for TikTok clout, just shows that there are people out there that just don't learn. Maybe the 3rd time's a charm and that Bakari learns to become an actual productive member of society and realizing you don't just have to be an insufferable asshole just for people to notice you. Actually try to be creative with your content. Don't go for just the low-hanging fruit content that will make you blow for a week and then people just forget about you. Because it doesn't matter how far you push yourself with this content and break more laws, there will always be somebody that will do it more and take up that moniker. And being in that cycle of just being a burden to society is something that we'll just never understand. Anyways, let's just get into the next placement. Oh, where do I start with this one? So now we're at the case with one Heather Morgan, also known as Russell Khan, her alter ego, that makes Mizzy somewhat tolerable.
Menace to society, higher than the sky can see. You can't get as high as me. Synesthesia, I can see. Menace to society.
Now on the surface, her and her husband, Ilya Lichtenstein, seem like just another cringy couple on TikTok that gained notoriety on TikTok for being unique.
Apple find my phone, but it won't work at home. God damn it, where are my AirPods?
I'll put it like that. But what if I told you that these two are behind the biggest crypto scam in human history so far? See, back in 2018, these two managed to steal around 120,000 worth of Bitcoin from the Bitfinex cryptocurrency exchange, which equated to around 70 million USD at the time. And because these two were able to hide it for 4 years, allegedly, the interest peaked significantly, to the point when they were arrested in early 2022, the Bitcoin they laundered went from around 70 million USD to 4.5 billion. Hence why if you watch any of their TikToks in retrospect, they're constantly covered in expensive items and living in a luxurious home in New York. While also subtly flexing on them that they actually did steal this Bitcoin, considering the fact that a lot of the lyrics regarding her songs, what about her, like, you know, breaking the law and not playing by the rules?
Motherfucking crocodile of Wall Street. Silver on my fingers and boots on my feet.
Well, we can surely see that in retrospect. The two have since been arrested, as Heather has it to the unspeakable of getting an actual job under house arrest. In her luxurious home, by the way, as her husband is still in prison, as the two face up to 25 years for their actions. But will most likely get a slap on the wrist if I was a betting man. This is such an interesting case because these two seem like the least likely to be behind such a huge and complex crypto scam, but also the fact that they were so unsubtle about it is so idiotic. If Heather decided not to become the world's worst rapper and make cringe TikToks with her husband, there is a decent chance these two could have lived a fruitful life, or at least not just get caught as fast, but they had to flex on the haters. But I think this case really just showed me that the worst crime in this situation is not Heather stealing the 4.5 billion in crypto, but her terrible ass music.
Bad bitch, motherfucking bad bitch, motherfucking bad bitch.
Alright, so anyways, next up. You know what, folks? I just really need to beat the shit out of this box right now, so I'll be right back.
Alright, who's shit in the pool again?
Oh, man.
Mad money, mad bitches. Get money, get bitches. But if you get the bitches, how are you expected to get the money if you spend all the money on the bitches? Oh, hey folks, we're back now. What placement are we on this list? Wait. Oh yeah, we're on number 9. Next up, we had the cases of Alex Danielle and Demore Makula, another TikTok duo that have nothing to do with each other, but committed very similar crimes of reckless driving. Starting off with Mr. Makula's case, in November of 2021, Demore, who also goes by Kid Maury on his socials, was cruising in his Dodge Challenger in Paso County, Florida, when he randomly decided to do a burnout of his tires and then run a red light right behind a police cruiser, as the cops obviously chase him down the expressway as he goes over 100 miles an hour, eventually ending at Maury's house. No, not that one.
When it comes to 1-year-old Dante, Pierre, you are the father.
Where he's detained for the incident, as he said he thought it'd be okay to run a red light if he could get away with it, and said at the time of being detained that he's young, makes a lot of money, and can do whatever he wants. He admittedly would retract his statements later on, saying what he said was foolish at the time, and it was a foolish way to live. Which I'll give him credit for being reflective on that subject. He still risked the lives of himself and other people in the freeway for no apparent reason, he just wanted to show off. But he since has gained a family, and it seems like he changed for the better. So good for him that he's one of the very few people on this list that had a good outcome despite the situation. You can't really say the same for Alex Danielle. In April earlier this year, a group of cars were doing donuts around the street's Country Club and Broadway in Mesa, Arizona. When police tried to break up the mischief, all the cars fled like an early Fast and Furious movie, but one car, a red Corvette, was sped off when police tried to get the car to pull over, and also hit a cruiser in the process. Police chased the car from Mesa all the way to Phoenix, where similar to Maury, the chase ended at the driver's house, where it was revealed that 16-year-old Alex Danielle was behind the wheel, a TikTok creator that was known for just doing basic TikTok shit. I also want to add this kid's username was You Can't Find Alex. Well, I mean, the police surely did, as he will be arrested for the second time in his short lifespan so far, having been previously arrested in the fall for driving around in a stolen U-Haul truck. That sounds familiar. Is it all connected? Probably not, but it's pretty coincidental in my opinion. As far as I know, there's no official record of what happened afterwards or the charges regarding this situation, as this is still an ongoing situation. But like I said earlier, there's no excuse for this behavior. Dumb teens doing dumb things that put people's lives at risk. And for what? You think you can outrun the police? Hopefully this situation reforms him in some sort of way, and hopefully he can have a happy outcome similar to what we talked about with Kid Maury. Anyways, please don't drive recklessly on the road just because you think you're cool and you think you're better than everyone else on the road. Nobody gives a shit if you think you're the second coming of Dominic Toretto. It's just goofy ass behavior. Now we're getting into the stories that make my blood boil. Once again, we are at a tie when it comes to a placement on this list. Two separate TikTokers on opposite ends of the world equally doing stupid shit for TikTok clout. Breaking down each of these cases individually, let's start off with the more popular and recent story regarding these two, revolving around Wyatt Yeager, also known as IC Wyatt. He's one of those very extravagant,
"Hey y'all, do you want to eat with me?" Today I got me an air sandwich. Ooh, I love me an air sandwich.
dare I say, TikToker, who has a personality that attracts very loudmouthed people that give no fucks type energy. From his dialect, attitude, clothing, aesthetic, he basically acts like a rejected character from a Sam Levinson show. So, what did get him in so much trouble? Well, in spring of last year in LA, this bright young fellow decided to be a nuisance as usual, at least by his content, driving around in his pink Mercedes, as he stopped in the middle of traffic to talk shit to a couple of guys in a pickup truck, allegedly, as he thought they were messing with him because they apparently knew who he was, as if he's the main character. And don't worry, this is far from the only instance where he acts like this.
Y'all don't know who I am?
Anyways, the two cars stopped at a local parking lot, where Wyatt decides to flash his pistol at the two guys, and as they were walking away from him, he pistol whipped one of the guys in the back of the head. Wyatt also drove recklessly around the parking lot, almost hitting a couple people including a mom and her young daughter, in the process before driving away. So, you think that'd be the end of the story, right? Wrong! We're just getting started. See, Wyatt himself then decides to contact 911 himself, stating that the two men who were in the pickup truck tried to kill him because of his TikTok fame. See what I mean by main character energy? The police don't take much stock in Wyatt's story, considering that there's video evidence of him driving around recklessly, along with almost killing people and just being a genuine piece of shit of a human being. The police track down Wyatt at his house while still in the Mercedes, as he treats the officers there with the utmost respect.
Tonight, I can't go to jail tonight. I have to work, like... You can't take my phone, this is my possession, so now you're gonna be a thief? Now you're gonna be a thief.
Oh, okay. Nobody tased you, though. What? You didn't get tased.
Now what? Okay, let me see his video. You don't have to. God, what? We don't have to. I have family that work in police force.
Okay.
You guys are talking to the wrong person.
Right. We have, listen, it's 2022. We have body cameras, people have cell phones.
It doesn't matter. You didn't body camera me pistol whipping somebody with a gun.
Oh, sorry, I forgot it was opposite day. Props to the officers in this situation for being able to stand this absolute prick for more than 2 seconds. He eventually is arrested and charged with 2 counts of aggravated assault without intent to kill, 1 count of aggravated battery with a deadly weapon, 1 count of battery on an officer, and 1 count of resisting arrest. And as of this recording, Wyatt has pleaded not guilty to all 5 counts, and we'll have to wait and see what the courts do regarding the situation. Once again, we have a story where we follow somebody who gives no qualms about anybody but himself, and making a bad situation worse because he can't let go of his own ego. Give this man-child the harshest sentence you can, California. Now jumping over to the other degenerate that tied with Wyatt's, a TikToker from Bangladesh known as Yasin Arafat Opul, hopefully I pronounced that right, who isn't super popular in the States but was popular overseas. In August of 2020, he and a friend of his, to quote the Daily Star, came to Dhaka to make videos for the platforms and was staying at a house in the DUNCAN area. The police officer said that Opul and his accomplices assaulted some locals in the Uttara area on Sunday evening, and the victim later followed the case. Police say engineer Mehdi Hassan Robin was driving his car with his 3 friends on Sunday evening when Opul and his associates were making videos on the road in the Sector 8 area. Robin honked as they blocked the road. Enraged, Opul and his accomplices beat them up. Robin and 2 others were seriously injured. Hasbal said that they were chatting near Sector 8 area on August 2nd evening when 60 to 70 teenagers and youths came and met with someone with a weird hairstyle. After some time, Hasbal's friend Robin came with his car. Later, 3 of their friends got in their car. Some yards ahead, the TikTok/Likey gang blocked the entire road. When Robin honked, the youths got enraged and hurled abusive words. He said Robin asked, "What's your problem?" And some members of the group, without saying a word, started beating them up indiscriminately. They were beating up Robin and Shakir with helmets and sticks, Hasbal said. He said that at least 60 youths were assaulting 7 of their friends when they appeared on the scene. When asked why they were beating us, they replied, "We run the whole Bangladesh. In just 5 minutes, 500 people will join us. Tell your father that we beat you." Hasbal quoted one of the attackers, Police say Apu and 20 to 25 others were accused in the case. The charges are unlawfully assembly, unjustly obstructing work, assaulting and causing injuries to the plaintiff, and also stealing goods. Once again, this is another situation where we have a TikToker that just thinks that they're the only person in their lives and that no one else matters to them. And these teen fans of theirs are as, if not worse, than the main culprits involved. And for what? Because you're mad that these people are mad at you because you're blocking traffic and they can't get home or to work? How narcissistically dumb do you have to be to not see the error in your ways? In short, don't assault people on the street when you're causing a scene. I don't really think that is a lesson that people need to learn, but the world never fails to surprise me. Once again, we're at a tie between two separate women committing the exact same crime, the dreaded DUI. Starting off with Taylor Arrington Harbor, she's a TikTok creator who's one of those prison reform type influencers who went to jail when she was a teenager for armed robbery from a local drug dealer and spent a handful of months in the slammer. And after serving some time at boot camp, she completely turned her life around, brought a kid into the world, and tries to set people on the right path through her social media following. Her recovery seemed perfect until July of last year, when she was pulled over in her Ford F-150. Wait, did somebody say Ford? Regardless, she was pulled over for driving strangely on the road late at night, when the officer that pulled her over realizing that she was intoxicated. She tried to gain sympathy by crying and the like, but eventually was brought in with a DUI charge. It's unknown to my knowledge how severe the punishment was, but she still continues to post content on TikTok to this day. So I guess it wasn't as severe as you may think, considering the fact that she did drive under the influence. She posted a response video soon after the arrest, and news broke out about the incident, where she basically deflects all the blame on herself and onto the haters.
Before I begin this video, I just want to say that I am not looking for anybody's negative comments. Truthfully, I think that you can very easily keep them to yourself, and if you don't, then it's just kind of sad on your part that you could be so miserable to want to make somebody else more miserable than you. Being an influencer and going through tough times in your life can be very hard because everyone knows about your life, more so than the average person. And right now with social media, we take others' opinions to heart more than I think any other generation ever has. After going to church today, I've learned that your judgment does not matter. I'm giving it all up to God for my mercy and support and love. And I take responsibility and accountability for my actions, in which I have put myself in a very bad spot in life. But, you know, from this point on, I can work towards a better me and hope for the best and trust in God that, you know, His way is the right way. I love you and thank you for your kind words and support.
And she basically wants God to forgive her and all the different types of language that a lot of these apology videos on the internet go through. It's baffling to me that time and time again with these TikTokers, when they're forced to face the music and actually, you know, are held accountable for their actions, more often than not, these people don't own up to it. They either make a bullshit apology video or just go completely silent off the platform entirely. Now switching over to the case of Amanda Carvalho, this is another situation that was completely documented on body cam footage for all of us to see the true side of the situation that is completely embarrassing. In July of 2021 at around 3 AM in Livonia, Michigan, a handful of police officers were called to inspect a car that was parked at a traffic light. The officers on the scene found Ms. Carvalho, a TikTok creator who spoke out against a lot of political decisions in the US around this time, was found asleep and absolutely sloshed from whenever she came from earlier the night. She was so wasted, to the point where she couldn't follow simple instructions such as putting the car in park, instead ramming her car into another police cruiser. The rest of the footage just unfolds an absolute shit show, where she's constantly rude to the officers.
Yeah, look at you, with your big ass badge. You are keeping Livonia safe tonight.
Slurring her words.
3 o'clock, I've had 3 o'clock to drink tonight.
Refusing to take a blood alcohol test to determine how intoxicated she is.
I don't consent to this.
Well, you don't have to when you're under arrest, so.
Yeah,
and then, you ask my keys are in the car.
And overall just being a vile human being. I don't think it's just the alcohol that came out in this situation. I think it just took her filters off. Sadly, she was only charged with 6 days of community service and 12 months probation, when I think it should have been a lot higher, given how unnecessarily rude she was to everyone involved in the situation, when they were making sure that she wasn't putting people's lives at risk. Things didn't initially affect her social media career until this body cam footage was released at around December of last year, a year and a half after this incident happened, leading to her privating all her socials, and has basically just left the internet entirely, and it's really unclear where she's been ever since this body cam footage dropped. And I think for good reason. Like I talked about with Miss Arrington, the lack of accountability regarding the situation, tacked on with how awful she treated everybody revolving around the situation, just makes her into this unlikable vulture that I think should have been given a harsher sentence just to see the error in her ways. And then immediately just runs to the hills whenever the truth comes out about the situation, where she unnecessarily put her and other people's lives at risk. Moral of the story, don't drink and drive, and if you do, you better get ready for the karma that will be brought upon you. Next up we have by far one of the most laughable cases of this entire list, regarding the case of Chosen Sandra Hannah. For those who are not aware of the case, Chosen, also known as Chosen World on TikTok, did really nothing out of the ordinary content ways for TikTok, doing stupid dances, singing, and the like. But the element that made him stand out enough to be on the top half of this list is the fact that this guy committed 4 separate armed robberies in 4 separate convenience stores across the Metro Detroit area from December 2021 to February 2022. Around a month later, authorities were tipped off that Chosen was the suspected robber, due to his hair and his shoes matching the surveillance footage of several of the robberies. And Terrell would confess to the robberies when questioned by police. He is currently detained and could be facing up to 20 years in prison for the robberies and using a firearm. Similar to our girl Razzle Dazzle, or whatever her name is. If this guy wasn't so blatantly stupid about posting TikToks, and rather just laying low for a while, or if just deleted his socials altogether, he would have had a higher chance of getting away from his crimes. But instead he gave the authorities all the evidence they needed. In retrospect, I am glad this guy is stupid enough to post his TikToks that contain all the evidence that the authorities need to arrest him, because it most likely would have put more people's lives at risk and done more robberies had he been able to be smarter. But in the world of TikTok, nobody uses their brain correctly. Certainly an interesting story, and like I mentioned previously, I hope the justice system gives this fool his day in court. Hey, editing CBMF here. So I forgot to talk about these assholes, so let's talk about them. So the couple I'm talking about right here is Christopher Phelps and his wife Kimberly from California. The reason why they are so high on this list is because they ran a YouTube and TikTok account where they would primarily post car crashing videos, whether it be road rage or showing how they would intentionally crash their car into other vehicles in order to get insurance payouts. Across their socials, they would document 162 dashcam collision videos, 42 of which being their own, 23 of which were their intentional collisions, leading to 17 different insurance claims as a result. One incident that Chris over here had the gall to try and say the other driver was trying to scam him.
Here, this is Jeremy Robles. He's about to set me up for an insurance claim.
It ended up being the video that would get the couple in trouble with Yucaba officials, as the overwhelming amount of evidence showing their actions would lead to both of them to being arrested and charged with several felonies, including insurance fraud, assault with a deadly weapon, and child endangerment. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, these two would have their child in the back seat as they would intentionally crash their car into other vehicles. Safe to say these two won't be awarded Parents of the Year. As of May 2023, Chris would be convicted and sent to 3 years in prison, and his wife 90 days in prison, 3 years of probation, and having to attend a 52-week child abuse prevention program. So yeah, great members of society, aren't they? Anyways, are you feeling okay, viewers? Are you feeling a little lightheaded after seeing all this dumb shit on TikTok all at once? I'm gonna cut the commercial break real quick before we do enter our top 5 stories, because we're really gonna start entering the trenches with these ones. CBF Productions. Okay, now we're getting serious here. I'm not really going to be joking about a lot of these cases going forward because they are quite dark. The beginning of the end starts with the case of Madison Russo, a 19-year-old from Iowa who grew a following on TikTok due to her perseverance of having dealt with several life-threatening illnesses over the past handful of years of her life. From dealing with type 1 diabetes, stage 2 pancreatic cancer, and leukemia, despite all that, she was able to finish high school and be enrolled in her dream college, all documented on TikTok, in which people grew attached to her story, in the sense where she gave all sides to her cancer story, the good, the bad, and the ugly, in an attempt to beat the odds of living up to 5 years with pancreatic cancer. In fall of last year, she was suffering sore back pains. She went to the doctor to get a PET scan and revealed that she had a football-sized tumor on her spine. A GoFundMe was immediately set up to help for the treatment, as several people, businesses, and even cancer organizations gave a total of 37 grand to the cause. A few months later in January this year, Maddie was declared cancer-free, but not because she was cured of her illness, but she allegedly solicited and cashed out the 37 grand she made from the GoFundMe. People quickly dissected every single post she made about her quote-unquote journey, noticing her hair never fell out despite having gone up to chemo up to 14 times, claiming she used miracle products to prevent her hair from falling out. A lot of her posts were there just a lot of inconsistencies, and overall how she seemed to have always been able to do normal activities, whereas other cancer patients in similar stages having trouble getting out of their hospital beds. It was even revealed that she took posts from other people's cancer journeys to try and pass it off as her own. She would later be arrested that month on theft by means of deception, a felony that carries up to 10 years in prison. But don't worry, the web of lies don't stop here. She was arrested but later released after posting a $10,000 bail, which was paid by one Thomas Bolund, who was the same man that started the GoFundMe scam in the first place. Thomas Bolund allegedly had a secret relationship with Madison, while having his own wife and kids, by the way, as Madison tried to become more important in his life than just a side piece, wanting Thomas to leave his family behind for her, even trying to fake a pregnancy to get this man to ditch his family, but nothing worked. He still financially spoiled her, giving a vast majority of the $37,000 in the GoFundMe via multiple separate accounts, taking care of her insurance, and more. While this is going on, allegedly, Madison's mom is kept in the dark about the situation, with Madison not allowing her to go with her to her doctor's appointments. And when she was invited to events where Madison spoke on her journey of fighting cancer, she tried to get another party involved regarding the validity of her daughter's diagnosis. This response was met with vitriol, as she left her behind at a press conference in Chicago when she heard the news. A few minutes later, Madison's mom found her car by itself, where a note was placed inside, stating for Madison that she would be dead soon and that she no longer had use for the vehicle. In reality though, she moved into an expensive condo and had purchased a brand new car. This is due to the fact that allegedly, she not only made $37,000 from the GoFundMe, but up to $100,000 from her own profile care accounts. Around this time, allegedly, a woman who had kids enrolled in Madison's mom's daycare tried to inform the mom that her daughter was not a patient at the hospital that she was claimed to be attending, but she denied the allegation. All of Madison's assets from her items, bank accounts, cars, all were taken by the authorities, as she is currently in a case where she pleads not guilty to her charge, as her reputation is absolutely shattered because of this case, but luckily everyone that donated to her GoFundMe has since been refunded. And that's where we're at with the story currently, and holy shit, that's almost too crazy to be true. If everything alleged is accurate, I don't even know where to begin. The overarching scam of faking a cancer diagnosis and lying about it for years is absolutely disgusting, but it gets worse the more you dive into it. The fact she spoke at conferences with people who were supposedly suffering the same disease as she was, and while she was promoting her healthy lifestyle and putting the expectations of how to handle battling with like leukemia and such like that, can cause a lot of harm, especially when you start promoting miracle products. And even to the point of befriending people who would eventually pass away from cancer, talking on the phone with them damn near every single day, while putting on this persona the entire time to try and gain more sympathy for your cause. I just can't imagine literally putting on a mask for years and then just being entangled in this web of lies. Even before he gets to the money side of it, it's horrid. And this guy that's allegedly supporting her the entire time is in no better position. Cheating on your wife and kids to support a woman that wanted to tear your life up, and spending thousands on this woman in order to support her scam is awful. This is just, I don't know, this is just evil, that's all I can say. And the fact that situations like these can make charitable people less charitable to people who actually have cancer, that need the support and need the money and don't have the backing or the following that Ms. Russo had. And the fact that these people who are actually suffering from like cancer and leukemia and stuff like that probably won't get the funds that they would have when they're asking online for donations, or probably won't get as much as they would have had this woman not use other people's sympathy to her own advantage. People are just a strange thing. I'll truly never understand why someone would like do something so vile and evil just for a quick buck. But humanity is doomed. This one really gets under my skin. So Trevon Sellers, also known as What's Up Trey on social media, is quite literally the bane of my existence when it comes to people who literally do anything just to shock their audience and just do things just to get attention in the most vile and disgusting ways possible. For those who are not clued into what I'm talking about, Trevon Sellers in the past month or so has gained a lot of notoriety on TikTok and other social media platforms, essentially harassing people and doing things that most people wouldn't even think of doing. He acts like one of those IRL streamers who would just go out in public and do nothing but just be a burden to society and harass random strangers around them that want nothing to do with his invented pranks. The event that kicked him into the spotlight is when he pulled a prank on a homeless man, saying that he'll give him a meal from his local Wendy's, but when he gets the food, he proceeds to eat the food in front of the homeless man and walks away. This prank caused a lot of backlash, unsurprisingly, and tried to defend the TED Talk, saying the entire thing was staged and that he gave the homeless guy food before and after the video was filmed, saying that he was a local in the area and wanted to use him for the prank. It doesn't justify the fact that it's still a bad prank, and because of the virality of this could lead to other people doing this, but not giving this person food and just doing it for real. There were other videos he made consisting of walking up to women by themselves in the grocery store and stroking their hair behind them.
Attention
Hi.
Hi, why are you touching me?
Because you smell so good.
Okay, no thank you.
Can I maybe smell you?
I see that you're doing some sort of weird psychology experiment, but if you put your hands on me again, I will call the police. Get away from me.
You smell like a beautiful vanilla candle. Don't do that.
Threatening to torture a kid in front of an animal adoption worker.
Regular
Okay, let me
ears.
get the kitten before you lose it.
Maybe I don't want to give it to you.
Okay, then you can leave.
Well, you have an attitude.
I'm gonna take the kitten from you.
No.
I'm gonna call PD.
Over a cat?
Can you call dispatch?
Now you're really not getting the cat.
Okay.
If you call the cops, you're not getting the cat for sure, though.
Asking a couple if they had any spare money to get him lunch, because he says he can't afford to pay for one, and this couple is actually nice enough to get them to pay for his food, only for him to say post-mortem that he would have bashed their heads in with a rock had they not paid for his meal.
Hey guys, I just want to say thank you so much for giving me that food. I want to give you this rock. Now, if you didn't give me any money to get food, I would have with that rock. But I want to say, life's about choices. And you made a valuable choice, and the correct choice.
And other disgusting acts I won't get into. He eventually would get banned from TikTok, arrested for threatening criminal acts, and has since been denied bail as his ongoing story continues. This person genuinely hits a nerve inside of me that very few things actually do. As someone who's grown up with the internet, and seeing how people will just do the most cruel and just unnerving things just to get a little bit of clout on the internet, Mr. Sellers has to be one of the most disgusting and unnerving creators I've ever seen on any sort of social media site. In this sense of how unnecessary and unsympathetic his content is, it just makes my skin crawl. And one of the worst parts about it to me is that on the surface, it doesn't really seem that bad or like out of the ordinary from like regular TikTok pranks. Yeah, the Wendy's prank was shit, but we've seen so many awful TikTok and YouTube pranks for over the course of so many years that I've just kind of gone numb to it. I've even seen people compare him to Mizzy in a lot of ways. But with Mizzy, I can at least understand the base concept of him getting an audience. Like his dumb pranks with him and his friends running around could attract like the 0.3 GPA level like middle schoolers that kind of find that stuff entertaining. And those type of creators do have an audience whether you like it or not. He makes content for his audience that people want to see. Who the hell wants to see content of a guy just being creepy out in public? Are you trying to attract sociopaths and murderers? Or are you just trying to create content that's just rage bait and nothing more? If it is, why do you get enjoyment from that? As someone who's always loved entertaining people, ever since I was a little kid, I've always loved putting a smile on people's faces and lifts their spirits from when they're in a down mood, or just trying to make people laugh. This guy's content is the complete antithesis of this. You are just making unnerving content defying these completely innocent people in public, and making content that makes you look absolutely irredeemable. Why do you want that to become your legacy? Why is getting any sort of attention on social media take priority over just being a decent human being? I feel awful for all the victims that had to endure this guy's actions, especially the couple that literally give him free food out of the kindness of their hearts. And like I talked about with Miss Russo, this can lead to the charitable people just being less charitable in the future, because what happens if this person actually was going to bash their heads in with a rock? People like you spoiling the spirits of charitable people is disgusting in my opinion. For all the terrible things we talked about in this video previously, this guy didn't steal $4 billion in Bitcoin or faked cancer, but with how clearly messed up in the head this guy is, I sincerely hope this guy gets locked up for a fair amount of time and serious psychological help, because if he walks out of the situation with just a slap on the wrist and nothing more, similar to Mizzy, things can turn way worse, and this guy could make content that is even worse than we saw previously. And I hope no one takes away the virality of the situation and just decides to crank it up to 11, because if they do, we could literally see like the next Elliot Rogers or something on that level. Remember, you don't have to ruin people's lives just to get a slight bit of notoriety on TikTok or other social media platforms. Analytics aren't everything, and this guy and everyone thinks that this content's cool needs to learn that. Now these top 3 slots all consist of crimes I think are pretty unforgivable, so I will preface to those who are very sensitive topics like child abuse, neglect, sex without consent, murder, that you do take a break before we move forward. And if you are too uncomfortable, then you can just leave the video entirely. And if you have made this far, I truly do appreciate you for your support. Now getting to these situations with both these women, once again being in Thai, and every single placement on this list going forward will consist of multiple people. Starting off, we have the case of Marissa Cloutier, also known as Digital Princess on TikTok. She's one of those fat big creators on the platform that just uses her body as a means to get people who are down horribly bad to describe their OnlyFans and not much else. The situation that landed her in so much controversy is a situation that unfolded in late 2021, where police were called in Tampa, Florida, to a couple of distressing neighbors informing the police about a child that was wandering the streets of the empty neighborhood by himself. When police arrived on the scene, one of the neighbors who found the child on their doorstep from another neighbor who found the boy informed the police about the situation as they arrived at the boy's house. With the door left wide open and no sign of a guardian in sight, the grandma of the child arrives and informs the police that her daughter is currently out, and is just as distressed as everyone else involved. Miss Cloutier eventually arrives back at the house, saying that she just rushed out in the middle of the night to a 7-Eleven to get laundry detergent, as if you couldn't do that during the day. But it was later revealed that she left the house for a booty call, allegedly. She eventually is arrested for child neglect, but the charges were later dropped. Miss Cloutier tried to deny the claims of the situation, and said that you shouldn't believe everything you hear on the internet, despite there being an actual police report regarding the situation. Things seemed to die down for a couple years until, inevitably, like most of the other cases we talked about, once the body cam footage was released, everything came back to the surface and she's been under fire ever since. This situation is just straight up heartbreaking, not only for a reason that it just consists of another parent that just isn't ready to raise a kid, and wasn't ready to take on the responsibility of raising a child, and changing their lifestyle, and instead taking priority in her own indulgences, rather than her or some other guardian making sure this kid was okay at the house. What makes this situation infinitely worse for me personally is the fact that this kid was only 4 years old when this situation happened. Around the time he turned 3 to 4 years old is when you have the ability to start getting cognitive memories, like you start to remember shit. And what makes me feel so bad for this kid is that he probably woke up in the middle of the night making sure like where his mom was. Maybe he had a nightmare, maybe he wet the bed, something, you know, what 4-year-olds do. And it was also revealed in the body cam footage that, you know, the person that gave him the lease to the house revealed that they just moved in like a week or two prior. So you have a child that is very young, who's probably very scared, like in an unfamiliar environment, has no one to talk to but his guardian so far. And you have this kid that just walks out in the middle of the night, not having anyone at the house to take care of him. And he's just walking around the streets late at night with no one to talk to, no one, like, he can't talk to anyone, he's unfamiliar with the territory, he's walking around these streets late at night like it's a fucking Silent Hill game. It's horrifying, and the fact that this situation is probably like the first batch of this kid's memories that will probably be in his, you know, subconscious for the rest of his life, it's just heartbreaking. And thank God that nothing happened to this kid while he was roaming the streets by himself, and all because his mom couldn't resist a booty call, and couldn't even get someone like the grandma to come in and make sure the kid was alright. And the fact that once the situation was revealed to the public, she tried to deny everything and like refuse to take accountability, and quite literally act like a child, is pathetic. And it really is a shame the fact that she didn't get any sort of major punishment for literally leaving her kid out in the cold, available for anyone to take him, or something worse. Luckily, when the courts fail, society will hold you accountable. Thank God for all these body cam videos that are released that expose the truth and really do hold these adults accountable for their actions. Because this proves once again that every child does deserve a parent, but not every parent deserves a child. Now jumping into the case of Taylor Frankie Paul, she's a Mormon family influencer that's one of those people that basically just documents her life through her entire social media, and has gained a huge following because of it. Earlier this year in February, police were called into her home in Utah, where they came across the middle of a heated debate between her and her boyfriend over the fact that he refused to take her out to a concert because she was hammered, and then decided to go out with her friends for a girls' night. Upon arriving home, the two got into a heated debate where things started to get physical, people were pushed, chairs were thrown, allegedly throwing several metal chairs at her boyfriend, and subsequently one of those chairs hitting one of her kids, the child being her 5-year-old daughter, allegedly. She officially was arrested and charged with several offenses related to DV, the chair hitting the kid, what have you. She has since remained active on her social media. The boyfriend says that the family is fine, and that everything seems to be normal at least. I get people make mistakes, but getting into a heated debate with your partner and getting physical, and getting that physical fight in front of a child, and a child gets hurt in a situation, it just makes my skin crawl. I'm thankful to be raised by good people that whenever a dispute was happening, that it was taken elsewhere and I wasn't involved in the situation. I do think any form of domestic abuse, especially when a young child is hurt, is awful. And the fact that she basically gets to act like nothing ever happened essentially, I think is gross in my personal opinion. I hope for nothing but the best for her kids. And like I said, if you're in a relationship and you come to a dispute or an argument, don't make things physical. It doesn't help anybody involved, and also just don't hurt kids because it's not good. That's all I have to say. Okay, so, here we go. Like I said, I don't believe hurting kids is good in any sort of way, or animals for that matter either. Both of these vile individuals not only did that, but did that for pleasure. I'm going to keep this section short because I don't really think I need to explain why the things that these people have done are atrocious. But getting into why they are so high on this list, Denise Verzier was a TikToker who gained infamy earlier this year because she decided to have intercourse with her German Shepherd, and posted the entire thing to Snapchat. Why, you may ask? She claims she was starting to do it by certain people, and that people paid for her to do it in said videos. Yeah, I don't believe that. And the case with the 19-year-old at the time, Vignesh Krishna, is that he was a popular TikToker from India before it got banned in the country, and in 2021, he met with a 17-year-old girl through social media, first talking through phone calls and eventually meeting in person, where he proceeded to take her to his house and have intercourse with her without her consent, leading her to become pregnant. Once he found out about the pregnancy, he tried to obtain a passport and leave the country. Police were informed about the situation and thankfully he had him arrested for the incident, where he's currently rotting in jail as he awaits trial. Yeah. Now we're here. We went from joking about people stealing U-Haul trucks and jumping in alligator pits, to every single TikTok murderer that I could find on the platform. To me, these people are the worst of all the people I mentioned in this video. Because despite a lot of the awful things that we've talked about in this video, regarding how many people have just done awful things on this platform, at the very least, every single one of the victims involved in this situation is still living and breathing. That isn't the case with these situations. Getting into each situation briefly, Ali Abolaban, who was known as JENNA on TikTok, fatally shot his wife and her friend in October 2021. The two were known for doing comedy skits on TikTok, but the two's relationship wasn't exactly perfect, as the two were allegedly involved in cases of DV and cheating on each other with other people. Abolaban found out about the partner that his wife was cheating on him with. A mutual friend of the two, through installing a live app in his daughter's iPad to hear the audio in his apartment in real time, he got the two in his apartment on the couch together and shot both of them, and will later be arrested and trial for the incident, facing the death penalty if convicted. And it's totally ironic that, looking in retrospect, given the fact that a lot of his comedy skits on the platform revolved around Tony Montana from Scarface, considering how he decided to react to this situation. There's also the case of Chelsea Ann Marie Shipp, who in March of 2022 decided to shoot down an innocent 16-year-old girl, Caitlin Nicole Stone, who was in the middle of a love triangle between her and her boyfriend at the time, Tony Arnold. Both of which were 21 and 24 at the time. Why bring a child into this, I will never understand. This girl, Mr. Arnold, eventually had intercourse, and fearing that she might have become pregnant because of a positive pregnancy test, a fight broke out at Mr. Arnold's home, with Miss Shipp and this girl inside, where, in a fit of rage, Miss Shipp shot this girl in cold blood, allegedly, where the two proceeded to wrap her body with a bin liner. At least that's the version that Mr. Arnold told the police. What Miss Shipp said after being apprehended by authorities after trying to go on the run for a few days is that she murdered the girl at the behest of Mr. Arnold because of the alleged pregnancy and shot her and wanted Mr. Arnold to get rid of the body. Miss Shipp tried to get some of her friends to help out regarding getting rid of the body when Mr. Arnold didn't, but all they did was draw the police to the house where they found the body. Regardless of what version of events you believe, it was eventually revealed through autopsy reports that this girl wasn't even pregnant, which makes the situation all the more tragic. These two are currently sitting in jail, both at bonds around $1 million each, awaiting further proceedings. Next up we have Mary Ann Oliver Snow, a known anime cosplayer on TikTok under several usernames, who in January 2021 was charged with second-degree murder. The situation that causes was her and her another friend at the time. Another cosplayer in her TikTok community, Claire Hastings, were hanging out in their Houston home with some friends one night watching Gotham, where they pulled out a handgun that was believed to be empty, waving around to act like Penguin from the show. Concerning the dumb, the gun looked strikingly similar to the one Penguin had. They were playing around with it while drinking, and eventually were joking around about pointing the gun at each other and pulling the trigger. Well, Miss Snow did this and shot Miss Hastings in the head as a result, revealing the gun to have bullets inside of it. They would eventually be arrested and indicted on recklessly causing death by pointing a handgun and pulling the trigger. They were released after posting $20,000 bail and started posting again on TikTok only a few weeks after the incident, where in one of the TikToks, they were cosplaying a violent character and lip-syncing the audio revolving around somebody bleeding everywhere and bleeding down on the ground. I don't know why, but that's what happened. Currently, this case is still ongoing as we await further reports. Next up, we have one of the more sadistic cases on this list, regarding Mohammed Arabu, a TikTok user from the UK who he and his friend Kasal Ojundi, who is the boyfriend of a woman, Maria Emarukai, who Mr. Arabu constantly collabed with on TikTok, while also having a wife and 3 kids of his own. They tried to sway Louise Cam, a 60-year-old woman, to enter a romantic relationship in order to defraud her of millions and take her property as their own, as this guy has a history of doing this to other women in the past. In July 2021, after months of these two trying to get Miss Cam to sign off her assets to them, the two ended up strangling Miss Cam with the cord of a hairdryer once the deal was nearing completion. The two proceeded to sell off her assets and spend the money on luxury items, as Mr. Arabu continued to post on TikToks as if nothing happened. But due to CCTV footage, other evidence, including Mr. Arabu confessing in a joking manner to Miss Emarukai about the murder while eating at a restaurant, police were tipped off about the scheme as the two were incarcerated soon after and were officially convicted in January 2023 of life in prison with a chance of parole after 30 years. But let's hope they never get the chance to see the free world ever again. Now jumping to the case of Mohawk Bakari, also known as baby vlogs on TikTok from the UK, in February 2022 at around 1 AM, Bakari, her mom, and another friend were involved in a high-speed chase down a freeway, with one or several other vehicles involved, allegedly racing each other. The chase would end with Bakari's car hitting another vehicle, in which 2 men were inside, causing the car to be run off the road and splitting the car in half, killing both men instantly. This case is still ongoing as of recording this, but similar to the case with Miss Snow, an eerie TikTok was made on Bakari's account a month prior before the incident, revolving around her lip-syncing a Shawn Mendes song, with her lip-syncing the lyrics, "Babe, I killed someone," as she does some crime POV or something of that nature. Yeah. Odd. Anyways, our next case revolves around the dual killers of Jonte Collier and Eric Dodds, who had gained a following on TikTok for their representation of the LGBTQ+ community, being a gay couple and showing their relationship life to their audience. That all came to a screeching halt in August 2022 when the two and 2 other accomplices fatally shot a 29-year-old man, Dakota Bradshaw, in his home in Georgia. The alleged motive behind the incident was to retrieve a blue Dodge Challenger registered under Collier's name from Bradshaw's property. It's unclear with the details given so far, what the context was in the relationship between these 2 men and Bradshaw, but we know that it did end up with Bradshaw's life being taken in the process. Collier was arrested after evidence showing his red Dodger on Bradshaw's property at the time of the shooting. His partner tried to set up a GoFundMe to pay off the legal expenses, but was jailed a couple weeks after the incident also. In May 2023, the 2 were charged with felony murder, with both receiving a life sentence without the possibility of parole, and an additional 5 years for possession of a firearm during the commission of a felony. With that case closed, we jump to Noah Gal, a TikToker who created content around driving his car at high speeds, regardless of the safety of him and those around him. In January 2022, he was driving his BMW at around 151 miles an hour in Florida, where he collided with the SUV, taking the lives of 6 farm workers in the process. He would be arrested and charged with 6 counts of vehicular homicide, and as the situation is still ongoing, the only surviving family member of this crash is currently suing Gal and his family for the incident. Now getting into the situation with Cameron Herron, another TikToker who was involved in the deadly crash in May 2018, where he was driving recklessly in his Ford Mustang on Bayshore Boulevard in Florida, racing another car, where he shot 24-year-old Jessica Robinoltz and her 1-year-old daughter Lilia, taking their lives instantly. Herron was arrested and sentenced to 24 years in prison for vehicular homicide, and despite multiple appeals, the sentence was not lightened as a result. Now we arrive at Claire Miller, a 14-year-old from Pennsylvania, who in February 2021 fatally stabbed her 19-year-old sister Helen, who suffered from cerebral palsy, and was allegedly jealous of the fact that her parents gave more attention to her sister than herself, and had to take care of her by proxy, and because of this, she was brutally murdered in her sleep. Her TikTok in retrospect consisted of a bunch of edgy content, as typical for a teen youth, but now looks a lot darker as the hindsight is 2020. Not to mention her demeanor has been inconsistent since her arrest, according to psychiatrists, even being quoted while in juvenile detention, saying she Michael Myers her sister. Her case is still ongoing, as the court system is deciding there whether they should trial her as an adult or a minor. I hope it's the former. Now we arrive at the case of Nikki Priest, and who in August 2020 played a major role in the life of her 3-year-old daughter Kaylee Jade being taken. According to the situation, Kaylee was her first child born in Birmingham, England, where Nikki was also from. She would enter another relationship with Dan Gregory nearly a year later, as Kaylee's birth father wasn't in the picture, taking the child as his own, as the 2 would produce another child soon afterwards. During her time with Kaylee, many people, including Dan, spoke about how Miss Priest was not the best mother in the world, neglecting Kaylee most of the time when she wasn't plastered on her TikToks, as social media would take priority in her life as Dan and several others had to parent Kaylee for her, as Miss Priest would say in passing that she wished she never had Kaylee. Dan and Nikki would later split up, and another man, Kalen Redfern, would enter the picture, as she would spend more time and effort attending to her new boyfriend's needs like purchasing a BMW, as Kaylee would continue to be neglected, sustaining several injuries from Miss Priest hitting her, and the like. She would eventually succumb to her injuries in August 9, 2020 in her sleep, as texts between her and her boyfriend rose later on that the 2 wished that Kaylee was conceived at a later time so she could have been theirs, and even saying that she wanted to end Kaylee multiple times. And responders weren't called on the scene until about 12 hours after Kaylee went to sleep and passed away, knowing that Miss Priest allegedly put no effort into reviving her child. She would post emotional TikToks about Kaylee before going back to doing her usual content. The 2 were arrested with all the evidence given regarding the texts. Both were convicted of manslaughter. Priest was jailed for 15 years, with a consecutive 3-year sentence for child cruelty, and Kalen would get 14 years. Although I think it should have been a life sentence for these 2 because this is just undoubtedly evil. Following that, we have the case of Courtney Taylor, a TikToker and OnlyFans model who in April 2022 fatally stabbed her boyfriend, Christian Toby Obenselli, while in their Miami condo. The reason for this was Miss Taylor's constant history of abuse within the relationship, allegedly, as she would front the majority of the emotional and physical altercations, allegedly from jealousy, yelling slurs at him, throwing his luggage out their apartment, and more. On the night of April 3rd, 2022, Taylor would end Mr. Omsoli's life after another fight broke out between the two. She would be questioned by authorities, but given her body language and behavior, it exemplified symptoms of narcissism, according to experts, especially after being questioned. She would continue posting on social media as if nothing ever happened. She would eventually be arrested on a second-degree murder charge, where she is currently being held in jail as she awaits trial, wanting the case to be done as soon as possible, apparently. Yeah, so sympathetic. And last but certainly not least, we have the case of Fang Young, a TikToker from China who was taken under the wing of a more popular TikToker, Gang Young, known as Chubby on TikTok, who gained a following from posting about his love of traveling, especially in Africa where he would find the love of his life. Fang would join his group of content creators, as they would make TikToks as a group. Fang would eventually leave the group after the group clashed over creative differences, but left the group on good terms, and Chubby and Fang would still hang out. That is until around late 2022, when bad blood started to boil between the two over an alleged robbery. Where Chubby was going back to China for a short minute while in Africa, Fang asked Chubby if he could buy a new iPhone for him. Chubby proceeded to give him around 1400 USD in yen, but the next time Chubby saw Fang, no money or phone was in his possession. A back and forth over social media was soon brewed between the two, as the two would try to call each other out over the situation, where Chubby's associates allegedly sent COVID-infected food to Fang's house, and would later smash up his home as a response. Things would turn from the worst on December 4, 2022, when Chubby was live streaming in Nepal, walking the streets with some friends, when all of a sudden, Fang showed up out of nowhere and fatally stabbed him in the middle of the street, along with attacking his other two friends there, but both survived. Fang would actually stay at the crime scene until being apprehended by authorities, where he's currently looking at a 25-year prison sentence, but the story is still unfolding. Anyways, with all these 12 cases spelled out, they all raise the same verdict in my mind, that murder, unless you're in situations like self-defense and the like, are unforgivable in every single way. And seeing how senselessly a lot of these people's lives were taken, as a result of the indecent actions by the perpetrators involved, it's so saddening and honestly just makes me lose my faith in humanity even more. May they all rest in peace. I am deeply saddened for all the families and friends involved in these situations that have had to go through these tragedies and all the losses that they have endured. Now, let's take a moment of silence to respect all the lives that have been lost at the hands of these monsters, and hopefully wherever they are, that they are at peace. Anyways, that was quite the roller coaster. Despite all the awful things I talked about over the course of this video, I do hope you enjoyed this video in any way, shape, or form. And if you did, please like, share, and subscribe for more content. And if you have any thoughts on the situations or any TikTokers I might have missed, please leave them down below. Anyways, I'm gonna go take a shower now because I just feel so dirty after speaking about so much vile content today. It's hard to be a perfect person, but not a decent one. See you back.